My name is Dylan Alwana Agerman. I'm from Des Moines, Iowa, and I'm committed to The Ohio State University. So I started playing soccer at a really young age. I played alongside my older brother. He's 2 years older than I am. So I started playing around organized soccer around 3, and he was 5 at the time. So we played with each other. My dad was the coach, and we played with some of his friends against the other kids in the community. So I've been playing soccer almost all my life. I played for Iowa Rush, basically from U5 to U14. So I played in academy from U9 to U10, and then as we moved up the travel teams and more competitive U11, U12, U13, and U14, I still played for Iowa Rush. I switched clubs to Des Moines Menace my under 14s year. I think that was a really big year for me in terms of how far I really wanted to take soccer, and I realized how much I really loved the game. From there, I played with the Des Moines Menace all of my U14s year, and we won MRL that year. We won our state cup that year, and we went to regionals and we lost in extra time against Sporting Kansas City in the regional semifinal. So that year was a pretty big year for me in terms of realizing how far I really wanted to take this and what my future goals would be. I started playing ODP around my under 13 year. ODP for me was like another level when you have the best players in your state, especially because Iowa does not have an MLS Next team, and at the time they didn't have any ECNL teams. ODP was almost like the highest level you could get to if your club team wasn't really the best. Des Moines Menace had a really good academy program as well. I got recognized at a ODP interregional showcase in Tennessee. So I was playing with my ODP team, and I actually scored a bike. I wish I had a video of it, but you might not believe me. So I scored a bike, and I guess after the game, I don't know if the Shattuck coaches saw it or not, but Coach Leza and Coach Mullen approached my parents and talked about possibly coming up for a prospect weekend, a prospect camp. And this was my under 13s year. So after my prospect weekend, I was under 13, and the DA started at under 15. So I came into my prospect weekend thinking that I would have the chance to play U15 in the DA as a U14. But at the time, the coaches didn't really think I was ready for it yet. So they told me I should wait off another year. My parents, they were also in agreement because I think that attending a boarding school and a private school takes some maturity, especially coming in as a young kid, developing teenager. So making the decision for my family and I was a little bit difficult, but my dad, I think he has a lot of education in terms of college stuff and finances and stuff like that. So his plan for me was to basically invest this money that my parents didn't really have all at the time. They just wanted to invest this money and put it into me and my education and my soccer, because I told my parents I really wanted to do this. And this is an opportunity I didn't want to give up. My mom took a lot of convincing, but she finally caught on board, and they agreed to send me to Shattuck my 9th grade year as a freshman. I started my U15 year here at Shattuck. My first year was a pretty good year, I'm not gonna lie. I look back at it as probably the most fun year. We're all 9th graders, we're all young kids, so there's still some sort of seriousness in playing soccer and going to school, and obviously it's your first year, so you're still learning, but there's a lot of time I think they give you to hang out with friends and you get more familiar with the place. I think that's the best way to put it. So our 15th year ended pretty well. As a team, we went to California, we played some pretty good games, and I just remember it was a really fun time before things started getting a little bit more serious and real. So we got into our under 16s year, and that was the year that the DA still had a 16, 17 combined age group, so it was mainly 17s. And my goal that year was obviously to make the older team above me, because that's where the games really counted at, the real DA, what we played in the year before. When I came in my 16s year, I really thought that this is something I was ready for already. It would be pretty easy. I know all these kids, I've played with all these kids. It shouldn't be extremely hard. And I think I had a really big wake-up call then. It kind of showed me that it's not really in your eyes if you think you're good enough. It's bigger than just you, and you might not fit into the team or the play style, or maybe you're not physically ready, mentally ready, and stuff like that. And I think that especially put my mentality to the test to see if I would just give up. And at first, I think I was doing really well when I handled it. I did get called up for a few scrimmages and stuff like that, and I thought I was playing pretty well. But I also was just inconsistent, consistent. I think that was something that I think I needed to surpass, especially if I wanted to become a professional soccer player. That's something that you really needed to surpass. And then sophomore year, obviously, we got sent home for COVID. Before we played our actual U16 league games, I think we were supposed to go to Colorado that year as well. COVID kind of washed everything out. So the COVID period was a little bit difficult for me, not mentally, but more physically, because we were limited to go out and train. And Iowa, as it is, it's really a hard place to find open fields, and obviously not the same opportunities that we have here at Shattuck. So the COVID period was a little bit difficult for me, but luckily we were able to return the following fall. So we came back, and that was the beginning of our 17th year. They created the new MLS Next league. So I think we all came back like with our heads ready to set the highest bar we can. So we came in our 17th year and found out we were playing more like league games. We were playing league games against the same teams, and they didn't really have any effect on our placement or playoffs or anything like that. I think they were still putting the league together. So 17th year for me personally was a really hard year and a really good year for me at the same time. It was difficult in the beginning because I started picking up some ankle injuries, and once again I think that really put my consistency and mental toughness to the test. Just getting hurt every once in a while and not really performing at my best, switching positions and stuff like that. It was mentally taxing, and I don't think I'd handled it well to start with. But as a team, we did really well. I think the winter was a really good period for me and for everyone at Shattuck as well, because that's usually our time in between seasons to develop and prepare for the spring season where we have playoffs after and stuff like that. Recruitment-wise, it was very difficult at the start. We had a dead period. We were allowed to contact coaches, but they weren't allowed to go to our games, so they could only show like interest like online in a way. So when I created my highlight video and stuff like that, because I was injured and I wasn't playing my best and stuff like that, other factors, I didn't really have the best highlight video. I wasn't really confident in what school I was going to or what level I could play at. I always wanted to be a professional soccer player, so I didn't know what path that would take me. And to be honest, I was kind of just lost in what I was going to end up with. So as we went through the 17th year in the winter, that was a really big time for us to develop and stuff like that. And even during that time still, I was sending emails and I kept getting the ID camp response, and no school was really like showing true interest in me. So still more confusion and stuff like that. Towards the end of the winter and spring break, I worked super hard, trained every single day, lifted every single day. It was just a really good time for me to develop and prepare for the season. I did a lot of like rehab and ankle strengthening to prepare for that season as well. Our first game against Minnesota United, I believe, that was our first game, and I played like the last 20 minutes. I played okay, and then the next game we played FC United in Chicago, and I think within the first 20 minutes I had an assist, and I think that's what kind of got me going for the season. I was like, okay, I'm like ready for this. Like, I need to get my name out there. We have a good team, so I'm gonna take advantage of this. And not only does playing well help me, but it helps the guys around me as well. So we had a pretty good 17th year, and I'm assuming, I don't know about the others, but recruitment-wise, I'm assuming they had a really good 17th year as well as we headed towards playoffs. I think we were first in the league for a while, first and second, bouncing between Chicago Fire. So I was still emailing schools throughout the spring of our 17th year, and I got my first response from Ohio State, actually. We played Michigan Wolves and we played Vardar, I believe, in the same weekend. Basically, from those two games, I played pretty well, and I pulled a few clips from both games, and I sent them out to coaches. I got a response from Ohio State, and that was kind of like,
Yo, is Khaled with you guys?
No.
I'm gonna go get him.
All right. Can you put that in the video?
I mean, I can if you want. All right. Okay. Reset. Talk about Michigan Wolves.
So I got my first response from Ohio State. Typically, it's usually an assistant coach responding, but I got the head coach to respond, and that for me and my parents was pretty big. It kind of sent the message that the school was like really interested in me. That was kind of like a really big boost of confidence to get like my first reach out from a coach, especially coming from where I was in the fall to not talking to any schools and just getting the same ID camp email to finally getting my first contact. So we finished out the rest of the season. We played FC Cincinnati and we played Columbus Crew. We played FC Cincinnati at Cincinnati, and I remember that game. The coaches told me I'd be playing with the 17s and the 19s. So I was a little bit confused on why that was happening. The Ohio State coaches also came to that game, so maybe it had something to do with that. I think I played pretty well in that FC Cincinnati game when I played with the 19s, although they lost. I think when I was on the field, I think I held my own. From there on out, I think Ohio State kept interest in me, and we continued to talk and have Zoom calls and stuff like that. Still no coaches responding to any of my other emails. We played Columbus Crew a few weekends after that, and I believe we tied them 2-2, but we still made it to playoffs because we were second. So because of the COVID, we were forced to stay in the dorms and we weren't allowed to leave. We stayed here basically the whole month for training and stuff like that. We all stayed in the same dorm, so I think that helped a lot. And yeah, we were basically all here on campus, hot trainings, hot dorm. But the fact that we were with each other, bonding with each other, I think that as a team made us super close, and that's why we were really successful. We drove down to Dallas, and our first game we played Tampa Bay United, and as a team, that was a really good game that we played. To start off with the win in Dallas was pretty big for us as a team. We just continued through the next day. We had a feature game on the feature field, so commentators and a ton of people watching. That setting, I think, for us as a team was pretty big too, and we all loved it. As a team, it was more of it wasn't like a selfishness thing, like, oh, I want to do my own thing and make sure all the cameras are on me. It was like, we kind of want to show everybody in the country that we can compete, we can hang, and we're right there with everybody, if not above. So we played Orlando City in that game, and we lost on penalties, unfortunately, but I think that game kind of showed everybody around us that we're definitely a valid team.
Yeah, let's go.
So after that game, I went home and I chilled for a week, really, and throughout that week, I'd say I got about almost close to 20 emails and phone calls and texts from different coaches talking to me, in contact with me. And that was a big surprise for me because originally when I had emailed them maybe a few weeks or months before, none of them had responded. But now all of a sudden, a lot of the schools that I had emailed originally, they were now reaching out to me as if I'd never reached out to them, except Ohio State, who I'd already been in contact with. So when I went back home, I narrowed my top 5 down to Ohio State, Providence, Tulsa, UNC, and Dayton. Between those 5, Ohio State, I think they'd been loyal the whole time. And I went on my official visit August 6th to the 8th, so right before those players came in for preseason. But I went and I toured the campus with the coach, and I toured the facilities, talked about financial aid and stuff like that. And really, I think Ohio State from the start, they've been really ideally the school, not only for me, but for my family as well. My family has had a few connections with people that have gone to Ohio State, and they've liked the experience. When looking at schools as well, I always looked at playing soccer there, but also if I were to stop playing soccer, how would my life look at that school? And I think Ohio State fit that match perfectly. So I went on my official visit, and I gave them a verbal commitment on my visit. I didn't really tell the other coaches from other schools until they reached out to me again. But I felt like Ohio State was right for me, so that was the decision that I made. So my biggest tip for anybody that wants to play Division I soccer, or just any level, for me it was perseverance, and I think that's key, because if you really want it that bad, you'll do anything to get it. And if you don't stay consistent, then it kind of just proves that you don't really want it that bad. For me, from where I started, where my parents came from, I think it's a long journey, and throughout the whole journey, they just keep embodying perseverance. And where they've came from, they just have to work continuously, no matter how much bigger the odds are against them. It's just a continuous fight to keep going. Maybe playing Division I soccer is a lot about connections and who you know and where you're playing and stuff like that. But my biggest tip would be just to keep persevering, and persevering in what you believe in is what I would say. Thank y'all for watching. I hope you enjoyed my journey and my story, and I'll see y'all in the Big Ten next year. Go Buckeyes.